Welcome to the very first episode of Narrative Mode. I'm your host, Henri with an I. This is not your typical movie review podcast. We're not here to just tell you something's good or bad or to rate it on a 1 to 10 scale. We're here to do something I think is a lot more valuable. We're here to deconstruct the stories we consume, from blockbuster films to prestige television, and find the signal in the noise. Here at Narrative Mode, we believe that stories are more than just entertainment. They're maps, blueprints for how to live, what to fear, who to trust, or what to believe. They're packed with lessons, warnings, and strategies, all hidden just beneath the surface of the plot. So our goal in this podcast is to unlock those lessons. We're going to look past the spectacle, past the surface level action, and ask, what's the story really about? More importantly, what can it teach us about our own lives, about power, about grief, about courage, or about leadership? We're switching our brains into narrative mode, looking for the hidden architecture of the stories that shape us. For our very first episode, I wanted to tackle something massive, something truly epic, and something that is weighing heavily on the cultural consciousness right now. Today, we are diving into the vast, sand-blown universe of Denis Villeneuve's Dune, parts 1 and 2. If you haven't seen them, or if your memory is a little hazy, here's the central premise of the saga in just a couple of minutes. Where in the far, far future, humanity is spread across a known universe, living in a feudal system of noble houses, all ruled by a single powerful emperor. But this entire universal empire, its economy, its politics, its very ability to travel through space, it all depends on one substance, the spice melange. The spice is everything. It's a drug that extends life, the rocket fuel that allows space navigators to map out complex routes across the stars and help them fold space without crashing into something. And crucially, it can grant visions of the future. And this priceless essential substance exists only on one planet in the entire known universe, the desolate, dangerous desert planet Arrakis, also known as Dune. Dune Part 1 begins with the noble house Atreides, led by the Honorable Duke Leto, given control of Arrakis by the Emperor. This seems like a massive promotion, but as Duke Leto himself realizes, it's a trap. They are being set up to be completely annihilated by their mortal enemies, the monstrous House Harkonnen, or Harkonnen, who used to control the planet and want it back. The betrayal is swift and brutal. Duke Leto is killed and his entire house falls. The only survivors are the Duke's son, our protagonist Paul Atreides, and his mother, the Lady Jessica. They are forced to flee into the deep desert where they are presumed dead. But here's the twist that powers the entire story. Jessica is not just some royal concubine. She's a member of the powerful secretive sisterhood known as the Bene Gesserit. Think of them as a kind of political, mystical space witch order that has spent centuries manipulating bloodlines and planting fake prophecies across the galaxy, all in an attempt to eventually breed a super being who could control everything. And Paul might be that person. So Dune Part 1 is the story of a fall, about betrayal, the loss of a kingdom, and a young man losing his father and his future. Now Dune Part 2 is the story of a rise. Paul and Jessica are found and taken in by the native desert dwellers of Arrakis, the Fremen. As Paul lives with them, he is forced to grapple with his destiny. He has these terrifying visions of a holy war, a galactic jihad in his name that will sweep across the universe and kill billions of people. The entire film is about his external and internal battle. Does he fight to prevent his nightmare, or does he embrace it as the only path to get revenge for his family and free the Fremen? It's a massive, beautiful, and complex saga. On the surface, it's about space witchers breeding a desert prophet who takes over a drug empire after his dad gets murdered. But beneath that, it's truly about power, belief, fear, ecology, all these massive themes. And today we're going to deconstruct it. We're looking past the giant sandworms, though they are of course very cool, and we're going to find the real actionable lessons hidden deep in the sands of Arrakis. We'll start with the central tragic figure of Part 1, Duke Leto, and the poison gift of power. So let's get into our first and perhaps most central key takeaway from Dune. It's a lesson that is written to the DNA of this entire story. Power demands a price. This isn't just about money. It's about the cost of ambition, the cost of choice, and the cost of survival. The story shows us this on three distinct levels. First, we see the most obvious political price paid by Duke Leto Atreides. Duke Leto is offered full ownership of Arrakis. On paper, this is the greatest prize in the universe. He's being given control of the spice, the source of all wealth and power. It looks like a promotion, a sign of the Emperor's favor, but it's a lie. The narrative makes it clear that this is a poisoned gift, a trap, designed with cold precision by the Harkonnens and the Emperor to eliminate House Atreides, which they see as a rising threat. Duke Leto is a good man, trying to do politics with honor, but is put into a system that rewards brutality. And in that system, being a good guy just means you're painting a target on your back. The price for Leto accepting this power is the annihilation of his house, the betrayal of his inner circle, and ultimately his own life. But the lesson goes deeper. We see the generational price paid by the Lady Jessica. Jessica, as a Bene Gesserit, was under orders. She was supposed to bear Duke Leto a daughter, who would then be married into the Harkonnen bloodline. All part of this insanely long game to breed their super being, the Kwisatz Haderach. But out of love for the Duke, she defied her order and made a choice. She birthed a son, Paul. This single choice, this one act of personal power against a systemic plan, has an extraordinary cost. It throws the entire Bene Gesserit plan into chaos. But more importantly, it places an unbearable burden on her son. Paul has to go through extraordinary hardships because of her choice. He's now a candidate for his superhuman being, but he's a variable that they can't control. He's tested to the brink of death with the Gom Jabbar, and his mind is forcibly open to things he's not ready for. The price of Jessica's power of choice is her son's safety, and in many ways, his humanity. And that brings us to Paul, who pays the most terrifying price of all. In part 2, Paul is faced with choice. He can live in the desert with the Fremen with Chani and try to fight a guerrilla war, or he can seize the mantle of Mahdi, their messiah. He drinks the water of life, fully unlocking his present abilities and sees the future. And this is the tragedy. He knows exactly how it will end. He sees the path forward, and it's a nightmare. He knows that by taking this power, he becomes this religious icon. He will unleash a holy war in his name that will kill billions of people across the galaxy. He knows it will alienate him from Chani, the love of his life, and he knows he will become the thing he's trying to fight against. And he does it anyway. He pays the unbearable price, the cost of billions of lives and his own soul. For what? For revenge of his father. He sees it as the only path. So this is the narrative mode takeaway. This isn't just sci-fi. In our own lives, when we are faced with big decisions, a promotion, new opportunity, life-changing choice, we must always step back. Power is always transactional. We have to ask hard questions that Duke Leto didn't, and that Paul did, but too late. Who really benefits from me being here? What are the real costs? Not just the ones on the surface. What are they not telling me? And the last, most crucial question, am I being given an opportunity, or am I the product? That's the difference between seizing power and walking right into a trap. This brings us to our second and perhaps most disturbingly relevant takeaway from Dune. Information and faith are tools. This is the core tactic of the Bene Gesserit. They don't just wield power through politics or combat. They wield it through belief. They're the masters of social engineering on a universal scale. The film explains that they have spent centuries, even millennia, planting myths, prophecies, and religious frameworks in different cultures across the universe. They use religion to manipulate people. Why? As a failsafe. Just so that if one of their sisters ever got stranded in the planet, she could tap into those planted beliefs to protect herself, gain influence, and control the population. But here's the brilliant and terrifying part. Because this was done over thousands of years, the victims, the people who inherit these beliefs, rarely if ever recognize the manipulation. To the Fremen, the prophecy of the Lisan al-Gaib, the voice from the outer world, is not a tool, it's truth. It's their deepest, most sacred faith. Their belief becomes completely genuine. And because it's genuine, it holds immense power over them. By extension, it holds them under the influence of the Sisterhood, the very people who engineered the belief in the first place. This idea of engineered belief has never been more relevant than it is right now in our modern world. Where do we see this today? We see less extreme but much faster moving versions of this every single day. We see it on social media, in the creation of viral narratives that shape our worldview. We see it in politics, where simple, powerful slogans are repeated until they feel like objective truth. We see it in branding, which sells us an identity and not just a product. And of course, we see it in the spread of conspiracy theories, which package complex, frightening events into a simple story with a clear villain. So if we're swimming in all this sea of engineered narratives, how do we protect ourselves from this manipulation? It's not about becoming a total cynic who distrusts everything. It's about becoming a critical thinker. First, it comes down to a 3-step mental checklist. First, you must find where the information comes from. Who said it first? Is this a primary source or the 10th person to repeat it? Are they trustworthy? Do they have a history of accuracy or just a history of being loud? Second, who benefits if I and everyone else believes this? Follow the power, follow the money. Does this belief inspire me to buy something, to vote for someone, or to hate someone else? What's the impact on me? Does it impact other people negatively if this narrative spreads? And third, can I verify this? Are other trustworthy independent sources saying the same thing? Or is this existing only in its own echo chamber? Does it have actual evidence pointing toward the truth? And this one is critical. Is the context being shaved away to portray this information differently? A 10-second clip of a 1-hour speech is the definition of an engineered narrative. A great tool to use with these 3 steps is the principle you've probably heard of called Occam's razor. The principle is simple. The truth is almost always the simplest and most logical explanation. It's the one that requires the fewest what-ifs and assumptions. If a story requires you to believe in a vast secret conspiracy and that thousands of people are all in on the lie, that every mainstream source is compromised, and that only one anonymous online post holds the real truth, that's not a simple explanation. It's incredibly complex. Using Occam's razor is the best method to suss out the truth and effectively apply those 3 steps we just mentioned. So the takeaway here is not to just distrust all information. That leads to paranoia and paralysis. The takeaway is to understand what you believe and why you believe it. That's the difference between having your beliefs handed to you and choosing them yourself. Now we come to our third takeaway, and honestly, I think this is genuinely one of the best lessons in the entire Dune franchise. It's the most practical, most useful, and the most repeatable technique for managing our own real-world stress and emotional reactions. I'm talking, of course, about the litany against fear. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear is gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. But it's not just a cool sci-fi quote. The entire litany is a manual. It's a lesson in not letting fear take control of you. It starts by stating the problem, fear is the mind killer. It's not being poetic, it's literal. Fear is a purely emotional, instinctive reaction, and it can shut down your rational mind. It gives way to panic, to bad decisions, and total obliteration. So the lesson is not, don't be afraid. That's impossible. You'll feel fear. The lesson is, don't let fear make your decisions. The point is to be able to function while you are afraid. We see this multiple times, but the best, most perfect demonstration is the Gom Jabbar test in part 1. When you rewatch that scene, you realize it's actually testing two people, not just one. First, there's Paul. He has his hand in a box that induces unimaginable burning pain. His test is to control his base animal instinct. Every fiber of his being is screaming at him to pull his hand out. If he does, the Reverend Mother kills him with a poison needle. Paul faces death if he doesn't control his instinctive fear. But then, look at his mother, Jessica, standing outside the door, watching her son, or observing how her son writhes in agony. She's being tested too. Her fear is different. It's not physical, it's emotional. It's the terror of a mother watching her child suffer. It's the political fear of what happens if he fails. She knows that if she gives in to her fear, if she screams or attacks the Reverend Mother or tries to sabotage the test, she will not only endanger herself and confirm their suspicions, but she might be ostracized from her order and worse, doom her son. So what does Jessica do to control herself? The film is brilliant here. We are let inside her head. We hear her vocalize her thoughts, and what she's doing is reciting the litany against fear to herself. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. She is actively, consciously acknowledging her terror, but she's not acting on it. She's letting it pass over her, creating a space, a pause, between the fearful stimulus and a disastrous response. This is a perfect demonstration of the lesson. Controlling your fear, even for a moment, is what allows you to think clearly. The litany is a tool, a form of active meditation that creates a single vital moment of clarity. And in that moment of clarity, you can make a choice rather than just instinctively reacting. That is a skill that we all can practice. And this brings us to our fourth and final great lesson from Dune, respecting the system. On the surface, Dune is about ecology, about water, sand, giant worms. But that ecology is a metaphor for any complex, interconnected system. Family, community, a company, a government, everything is interconnected, and your actions create ripples you can't always predict. The films show us this clearly in black and white contrast between how the Harkonnens rule versus how the Atreides try to rule. The Harkonnen mindset is pure exploitation. They are extractors. They don't care about the planet, they just want the profit from spice. They treat the native Fremen as pests, killing them off, driving them from their homes, all so that they can take everything from themselves. They see Arrakis as a problem to be solved, the problem being how to get the spice out cheaply. Then we see the Atreides and later the Fremen. Duke Leto understands that power over a thing is not control. He brings a mindset of stewardship. He doesn't want to conquer the Fremen, he wants to partner with them. The Fremen themselves live this philosophy. They don't try to defeat the desert, they adapt to it. They join its processes. It's the perfect embodiment of that beautiful line from Jamis that he said in part 1. He said, "The mystery of life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to experience. A process that cannot be understood by stopping it. We must move with the flow of the process. We must join it. We must flow with it." The Harkonnens tried to stop the process, to control it, and the planet rejected them. The Fremen flowed with it, and in doing so, they harnessed its true power. The show of goodwill from the Atreides, their willingness to join the process, has a powerful ripple effect. We see this in the crucial spice harvest scene. Because the Atreides showed respect, the planetary ecologist Liet Kynes, who is secretly a Fremen leader, is there with them. She is observing them. And when the sandworm comes, she helps them. She explains the proper protocol, the proper way to survive the encounter. The single act of goodwill, treating the Fremen as partners, directly guarantees their safety in that moment. And when Paul and Jessica escape to the desert, they're not just any outsiders. They're the survivors of one noble house that tried to treat the Fremen with dignity. That initial respect that rippled from months earlier is what opens the door for Paul's integration. His own skill as a fighter and his intelligence as a ruler are what let him walk through the door. But his father's respect is what unlocked it in the first place. So how do we apply this in our own lives, in our own complex systems? It comes down to 3 habits of systems thinking, all inspired by that quote. First, we need to look down the long game. The Harkonnens only thought about the next quarter's profit. The Atreides thought about the next generation. Ask yourself, how will this decision, this action affect me, my family, or my team later down the line? Am I building something that lasts, or am I just extracting value for today? Second, who pays the hidden cost? This is the key and directly relates from our first takeaway. The Harkonnens forced the Fremen to pay the cost, and in return, the Fremen made them pay. Ask, will we reap a good harvest and benefit from protecting the system, this relationship, the source? Or will we be sabotaged, ruined, or simply abandoned when we need the help the most? All because we let someone else suffer for a short-term gain. Third, how do we survive and thrive? This is related directly to step 1. How do we build a system that renews itself? How do we flow with the process? The Harkonnens had to constantly spend resources to hold Arrakis. The Atreides' plan was to build a system that would protect them, renew their strength, and generate value for everyone. And finally, we have to ask, how am I building alliances, not just assets? How am I creating a community that will protect me and that I will protect when the time comes? Respecting the system means you understand that you're not separate from it. You're part of it. And how you treat it will inevitably be how it treats you. And that's a wrap on our lessons. But we can't talk about Dune for this long without just taking a moment to appreciate the sheer craft of these films. Putting aside the deep themes, these movies are just absolutely beautiful. Staggering achievements in filmmaking. The scale of it, the cinematography, those shots of the harvester in the desert or Paul walking on the sand, it makes you feel like an ant. It's breathtaking. And the sound. Hans Zimmer's score. He was literally inventing new instruments just to create the sound of this alien world. It's not just music, it's world building. It's been a long time since we had a cinematic event on this level. Honestly, the only comparison that feels right is Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy. These Dune films feel like this generation's Lord of the Rings. They're massive, technically brilliant, and deeply serious adaptation of a supposedly unfilmable book. They've captured the culture in the same way, creating a fully realized world that you just want to be lost in. It's that rare kind of epic filmmaking that demands to be seen on the biggest screen possible. And the best part is it's not even over. Everyone is already so excited for the third part. The studio has confirmed Dune Part 3 is officially in the works, which will adapt the next book, Dune Messiah. It's scheduled to be released in December 2026. Part 2 was the story of a rise to power, but Messiah is the tragic story of what happens after you win. The story of what it's like to be the emperor during a chaotic time that you cannot fully control. It's going to be dark, reflective, and a necessary conclusion to this incredible trilogy, and I for one can't wait to see how Villeneuve brings it to life. And that's it for our first episode. So I've been Henri with an I, Stay curious.